All right. Welcome to the newest episode of Sports Talk Central. I'm your host, Deep Mahmood, with my normal co-host Hunter. And today we're going to be talking a lot about NFL news, some extension offers, some extension contracts that were made, and what that means for a couple of other players, as well as recap some of what we've heard from both the Ravens and Steelers. And we'll do a brief update on Virginia Tech of the training camp. So let's start with the first one, which is Josh Allen signing extension with the Bills. What was your first reaction?
I mean, you saw my tweet about, I had a couple of my buddies from college who are Bills fans come at me a little bit. I think, obviously this is where the market is going for quarterbacks. You can deny it all you want. This is what's going to happen with, quarterbacks that are, top 10, but even some quarterbacks that are outside of that. I think you're just going to see quarterbacks get paid. It's the best. It's the
Ryan Tannehill.
Yeah, it's the most important position in sports. He got a lot of money when he probably shouldn't have. But I mean, it's just okay. Is Josh Allen a top 10 quarterback? Yes, I will say that. But is he 43 million per year good? No. Yeah, I mean, he's had one really good year, and the rest of his career is really bad. So you're going to make this bet now. Okay, say he's really good again this year, which I think he probably will be. Then, maybe the contract gets a bit better. But what if he, takes a little bit of a step back? Again, last year was the first season where he actually put it all together and looked like that first-round quarterback that the Bills expected him to be, because he got off to such a rough start. But as of right now, man, I think 43 million per year for him is a bit too much. I think that kind of money should only go to the top 5, the top 6 quarterbacks in the league. And I'll throw this take at you. I don't think Baker or Lamar should get close to that money. I really don't. I just don't think they're – I think Baker – I think obviously they're good quarterbacks. I think Lamar is probably worlds better than Baker, to be honest. But I don't think neither of them deserve that money just from what they've – it's just too soon, I think.
Yeah. So for me, I don't think the quarterbacks deserve 40. I think Mahomes deserves close to 45. I don't think the other
Yeah.
ones don't.
Mahomes, Brady, Rodgers. I mean, do you put
Russell.
Dak? Yeah, Russell Wilson definitely 100% deserves it. Um, Dak Prescott, I don't really
No.
know about that. No, I mean
No.
it's mainly just those 4 guys. I mean, Deshaun Watson. Well, before all that shit went down. Sorry, before all that garbage went down with him, with how much of an idiot he looks off the field right now, because he looks like he might get traded. Um, I don't know. I don't know. It's hard, but again, man, that's my point. Like the 5 to 6 quarterbacks, heck, even the 4 I mentioned, those should be the only ones getting over 40 to 45 million. I just think it's too much.
Yeah, I mean, I just find it funny that when Flacco signed his contract, it was back. That was 20 million a year. That
Yeah.
was that was 5. Remember when Flacco signed his extension? It was like, oh, that's a lot of money for a quarterback. Now
Yeah.
quarterbacks are making double the amount of money that Flacco and Stafford and Matt Ryan what they signed for. My thoughts. I'm surprised that Josh Allen was first out of the 3 because I thought it would
Yep.
be Lamar, then Josh, then Baker. It doesn't seem like Baker is going to sign this year because the Browns just extended Nick Chubb, and then Denzel Ward apparently is the next one they're trying to get next one they're trying to extend. Then Baker, which I think is that part of the discussion. I will kind of explain my theory on why that's a big mistake. Yeah, like you're right. The top 5 quarterbacks are like Mahomes, Wilson, Brady. Those are the ones that deserve 45 million.
Yes.
Unfortunately, the market is leaning towards quarter quarterbacks getting 40 mil. Like
Yeah.
we could be seeing Justin Herbert getting 45 to 47 million a year.
Jesus Christ. I mean, it's just too much. We can debate this forever, but
Yeah,
I
but then
mean,
I wanted to go a little bit more into the like than the other two. I think Josh Allen's a good quarterback, but when you have a guy with a big arm, the biggest thing you always look out for is the decision making. The Bills, they have Singletary, they have a solid run game. I don't know what they're doing about the tight end. We all know they have Stephon Diggs and a few other good receivers.
yeah, their receivers are really good.
Yeah. And then, but I don't know, but I feel like Josh Allen is, if he turns the ball over, or if he gets guys that the Bills, where they might see multiple games in a row where the turn is a negative turnover differential, but then compared to someone like Lamar who does take better control of the ball, and or someone like Baker, it's not going to be like Nathan Peterman with Josh Allen. But
Yeah.
but I think he definitely deserves a lot of money for sure. He's
Yeah.
definitely, if you're a Bills fan, you should be happy because the alternative was find someone else, which is
Probably not a good idea.
not that easy. Max Lamar, it doesn't really impact Lamar too much, and I think I texted you this. Lamar
Yeah.
doesn't have an agent. Like that's the one thing we have to keep in mind. And the agent takes about what 5%, 3%, like for a quarterback.
Yeah.
So you'd say about 3 to 5%. So yes, Josh Allen, and I think 9 times out of 10, because we are comparing, we would be normally 9 times out of 10 can be comparing guys, two guys with agents. You could go and make that better comparison of 43 million. But here's the thing, Josh Allen, he's if it's 5%, Josh Allen's getting 40.85 million out of that 43. He's getting 40.8. That means that means his agent, who did a really good job, got about 2.15. That means if Lamar were to get 41 million a year and the agent cut is about 5%, Lamar's actually making more than Josh Allen. But because Lamar doesn't have an agent, and as far as we know, does not have anyone who he owes a percentage of his money to, like some players do, providers and agents, he gets to, before taxes, he gets 100%,
Hmm.
while other players might get 95 to 97%. So I think a lot of people, the misinterpretation is that Lamar now has to get 44 or 45 million, but he really just needs about 41, 42 million to make more than Josh Allen, because the thing about because Lamar gets to keep 100% of his money, Josh Allen gets to keep about 95 to 97%. That's the big difference here.
Yeah.
It's not that much of a difference where now you could expect Lamar to get 37 or 38 and we find the fact that Josh Allen got 43, Lamar needs to make at least, and Lamar has an MVP trophy to his name. He has a better track record. So
He
take
should
that 40
he
point.
should he should get more, but not, you said due to him not having an agent, he might come in a bit less, which is going to help your salary cap situation too.
Yeah, no. I would say he's definitely going to get a little bit less, but what I mean by less is I don't mean he's going to take 35, 36 million a year.
Yeah.
I'd say he's probably going to take, and I was going to get to the point of 40.85. And Lamar has the MVP trophy. He has a better track record. I would expect Lamar to get 41 and a half to 42 million a year, which is typically what we all like. I think I replied to your tweet saying 5 years, 210, 165 mil guaranteed. That's about 42 million a year.
Yeah.
That's where I expected him to get. That's what I expected his contract to be 3 months ago. That's what I expect his contract to be right now. Now this is where it's interesting for Baker Mayfield. With Baker, the challenge is if I'm the Browns, I I'm signing Baker Mayfield to have a chance to sign Lamar, because if I'm Baker Mayfield's agent and I'm looking at Lamar, I'm looking at a quarterback that won a Heisman just like Baker, plays in the AFC North just like Baker, was picked in the first round in the 2018 draft just like Baker. So if Lamar gets 42 mil and the agent cuts 5%, agent cut is 5%, Baker Mayfield's agent is going to say, all right, well, a guy who's very similar to you got 42 mil. Josh Allen got 43 mil. Dak got 39. Mahomes, we're not going to touch that. But I want my cut. So I want my cut in here. So I'm gonna and he's so that Baker's agent's probably gonna ask for 44.1 mil, because that's the additional 5%. Now
Hmm.
that 44.1 is going to count against the Browns, even though Baker and Lamar wouldn't in that situation they would be getting the same amount of money. So if I'm Baker's agent, I want Lamar to sign first. Then what I would do is I would add whatever if it's 3% or if it's 5%, add that to what Lamar got on a per year annual basis, and then maybe get an extra 5 to 10% of that, 5 to 10 million more guaranteed. That would be what I would do if I was Baker's agent. If I'm Baker, I'm getting paid no matter what. And
Yeah.
if I'm the Browns, I don't necessarily want that to happen. So I'm signing Baker before Lamar, before Baker's agent can go benchmark. By the way, this is a benchmark of Lamar got plus an additional 3 to 5% per year. If I'm the Ravens, cool. I can just take my time. They apparently already had discussions on the extension. I think that Lamar is going to sign his extension before the season starts. Like I said about Lamar not having an agent, if Baker does sign first, the Ravens could then say, well, the agent's cut per year is X percent. So we're willing to give you we're going to take that percent on a per annual basis. That's the contract you're going to get. So they're in that interesting position. And then with the Browns, they just signed Nick Chubb to a 3-year, $36 million deal.
Uh-huh.
A running back on a second deal never is good unless you sign him to what Gus Edwards signed him, 2 years, $10 million. Now they also signed Austin Hooper, and now he's one of the higher paid tight ends. They signed Jack Conklin, one of the higher paid right tackles. Jedrick Willis is due for a new contract in 2-3 years. He can start negotiating one. At that point, where do you think the left tackle money is going to go? Considering that the most highest paid 23 mil, 23, 24 mil right now.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
So you're talking about paying your left tackle 27 mil. How much is Wyatt Teller going to get? Because Wyatt Teller is probably going if he continues this pace. I mean, you're already paying Myles Garrett 25 mil. So and then John Johnson's getting a good chunk of change. The other Rams secondary member they got, he's getting good money. I mean, the Browns, they are going to be out of these three. I think we can all agree. Well, both of us can agree on this. Out of the three teams, the Browns are going to be the ones most screwed over by Baker Mayfield extension, and the Bills depend because they've had a similar contracts like Marlon Humphrey, Trey White. They both signed a
Yeah.
similar. Dawkins, the tackle, Ronnie Stanley, similar amount of money. Josh Lamar, same amount of money. So, and then
I think it'll be the Browns. Yeah, I don't think Baker's going to live up to that contract, to be honest. I really don't.
But imagine the outcry if they let Baker go. Like they
Yeah, I mean they have no choice because then they have to restart a quarterback again. I mean they just have to do another restart, and I mean the fan base has already been pissed off for the last 20 years. I mean, sure they won the playoff game against the Steelers, but it'll probably be another 20 years before they get back to a playoff game, I think.
Right, and you got to factor in GM and head coach.
Yep.
So that's the other thing. So those things can always prolong. I mean, those things can always prolong a rebuild. So it's going to be interesting. And by the way, guess whose contract after this year as well? Kyler Murray.
Yeah.
Remember,
he's gonna get a lot of money, and he hasn't even won that much yet, basically.
Yeah, well, I don't know how much do you think he's gonna get? Like if Josh Allen gets 43, Lamar let's say gets 42 to 44, Baker probably gets in that 40 to 45 range. Where do you think Kyler ends up with?
35 to 40, I would think.
And then the negotiation point with that one is Kyler Murray was also a first round draft pick by the Oakland A's. We'll see in a couple years whether it's Oakland A's or the Vegas A's. But that's the other thing. Like the Cardinals now have to give Kyler Murray and I think that's an underrated story here. The Cardinals now have to give Kyler least because now Kyler can then say, "Well, screw you guys, I can go play baseball. Like I can go play. Like, I can go play baseball as well." So
yeah, exactly.
So that's gonna be really interesting. But man, I think where do you think this ends? Like, what do you think happens first? A quarterback gets a contract that guarantees him a percentage of the cap, or a quarterback making more than $50 million a year?
percentage of the cap. $50 million, I think, is just too much. So there's only one quarterback in the league that I would give that to, and that's probably Patrick Mahomes. And he's basically going to be getting a percentage of the salary cap with this next deal anyway. So,
yeah,
I think I think this is leaning towards a percentage of the cap in the next few years. I mean, that's where the market's going.
Yeah, and then that's the thing though. It's gonna be interesting. But here's the scary thing about percentage of the cap. If the quarterback gets a percentage of the cap, what's to stop receivers from asking for the same thing? Tight ends for the same thing. Linemen for the same thing.
I think the big thing is it's a quarterback is a different story because it's the most important player on the team.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Like I agree with you. But I'm just trying to put myself in the shoes of the next DeAndre Hopkins type receiver.
Well,
right?
Tell them to get lost. You're not gonna. There's only one position. It should only be one player per team that gets that, and it's gonna be the quarterback. And if your quarterback's not that good, and if you have a really good wide receiver, then maybe you can do it. But it's still probably stupid to do that because the production could fall off at any point for a receiver.
Like my point was just being like, yeah, I agree. Quarterbacks should be the only position. Quarterbacks and left tackles, like quarterbacks and blindside tackles. That's it.
Yep.
But I wouldn't put it past a tight end demanding that. I wouldn't put it past a few years if Kyle Pitts is as good as we think he is. I would not put it past Kyle Pitts' agent at least toying with that idea, right or wrong. I don't think but let's recap the Steelers and Ravens. Obviously the Steelers had the Hall of Fame game. What are your thoughts on all that? And
it was nice to watch a football game again. I thought Mason Rudolph played okay. Everyone's gonna whine and complain and be miserable on Twitter about Mason Rudolph. We all know what he is at this point. He's a reliable number 2 quarterback. He's not going to be a starter. The Steelers can shine his shoes and talk all about he's going to start next year after Big Ben retires. It's not going to happen. He played fine, had a bad fumble, but had some really nice completions. Josh Dobbs, I thought, was the best quarterback of the night. This competition is going to be really interesting, I think, down the stretch. Dwayne Haskins, I really think he has some nice zip on the ball. He has a really strong arm, probably the best arm of any of those 3 quarterbacks. But they didn't really open up the playbook a lot for him. I think they're taking it a bit easy, just being a bit conservative with him. There's a reason why he wasn't that good coming out of Ohio State. People that think that he's the heir apparent to Big Ben at this point needs to just chill out. And yes, I've seen that take thrown around a little bit. Nice to see Najee Harris play. I thought he was running really strong throughout it. There just came a point in time where they had to take him out. It's good to see that. Chase Claypool had that awesome 45-yard catch. He's going to be really good again this year. He's probably going to get a nice contract once that rookie contract is up. I'm excited to see that. I thought the defense was fine. They only gave up 3 points, obviously. But, a lot of this was to see the backups. And I don't know if you saw this take from Pro Football Talk, Mike Florio. It was on Twitter. He got ratioed pretty hard, basically talking about how, the preseason, no one wants to watch it. Who cares for basically any of the players? And he just got full ratio because it's not about just watching. It's about some of these players going out and living their dream, trying to make their first NFL roster. So don't really know how that tweet wasn't taken down. At least last I checked, it wasn't. But I also saw, this was the most watched preseason game in 4 years. And it's like, wow, I wonder why. You have the 2 biggest fan bases in the league, or two of the biggest teams playing in the league with the 2 biggest fan bases in the league, excuse me. It's almost like, yeah, a lot of people are going to watch it because it's the Steelers and Cal. That makes up a lot of fans in this country. You can go around the country and see a lot of different fan bases, but a lot of times you're going to see one of those 2. It's nice to see them put that on the Hall of Fame game. I thought they played. It was fine. It was a good start. Not too many penalties. That new kicker that was kicking. Chris Boswell is not in any danger of losing his job. And that new punter, hopefully we have ourselves a new punter for the first time in a while. Presley Harvin III looks awesome. That looks like the best punter they've had probably in a decade. Jordan Berry might be having to pack his bags at some point. But, the quarterback competition, it's nice to see those 3 guys going at it. They're going to have a really tough decision on their hands with sending one of those guys down to the practice squad or just dumping one. I saw the rumor about James Washington, about him requesting a trade. I think it makes sense for him just because he is the clear number 4 on the depth chart. But the thing is, if you trade him, your depth after him is not good, right? You have
Who's
Ray
your top three?
McCloud.
Who's your
You have
top?
Ray. Yeah, it's Juju, Deontay Johnson, and Chase Claypool.
Oh,
So then you have James Washington. After that, Ray McCloud, and a
but
bunch of
he's a special teamer though, right?
yeah. He's the 5th wide receiver if he comes into one of the playbook. Well, he's the 5th wide receiver if you look at the depth chart. Excuse me. But after that, it's a bunch of preseason and practice squad guys. So do you really want to do that? I would only trade James Washington if they could get cornerback depth, which they are lacking right now, or another lineman, which I think they do need to be a little more deep around. I thought the line was okay in that game. It was nice to see. I think Green, the new center, he looked really good. Okorafor I thought looked fine. I think Zach Banner was in there too. It's gonna take some getting used to seeing all these new faces, just because it's still so weird at this point. But I probably rambled on a while now for the preseason game. Nice to see them get the win. I didn't have to be stressed watching it. Obviously, it's a preseason game, for God's sakes. But again, if they were to trade James Washington, I would only do it for a select package. If they can maybe even get a 3rd or a 4th round pick somehow, maybe a bit unlikely. I do it for that, but you're probably looking at a late pick, which I don't think it makes sense for the Steelers to do that. They're going to be getting comp picks for when Bud Dupree with that one, and then I think who's the other guy that walked? I think Steven Nelson. I think they're getting a comp pick for no. Is it? I don't know if they're getting a comp pick for Steven
It's not
Nelson.
Villanueva because he signed after a draft.
Yeah, it's Bud Dupree and someone else that they're getting a comp pick for. I don't remember.
Nelson was cut, so you're not getting a comp.
Yeah. It's Dupree and someone else. I have to double check who it is, but that would only make the most sense to trade Washington. But I think that's basically it when it comes to the preseason game. You'll probably see the starters play in the 3rd game if you follow what Mike Tomlin usually does for preseason.
Yeah, so for the Ravens, basically there's some more news out there. So we'll get into Justin Houston stuff a little later. So it's a lot of the receivers. I think they're mainly focusing on like route running. I've seen them doing drills where they're catching soccer balls. Like they're not catching footballs, they're catching soccer balls. Now I don't know if it's because soccer balls are more slippery. So if you can catch soccer, you remember the movie Dodgeball? Like if you like where they had them, like remember the character for type, like basically they're catching soccer balls maybe because it's like if you can catch a soccer ball you can catch a football, or also like catching with your hands not with your body. So clearly the new receiver coaches are doing some work there, and I think they're doing a very good job because apparently Hollywood Brown now has been missing a few practices because of a hamstring injury. And I was just checking Reddit a couple minutes ago while you were talking, for some talking points, and they brought up one post brought up routes that your hamstrings might be affected. So they might be doing a good job there. James Prochet has been playing pretty well because he's been catching everything, and I think that was kind of the big thing with him coming out of college at SMU. He's not the fastest guy, but he's reliable. I mean, a lot of people kind of put like a Antonio Brown light comparison in terms of like reliability on the field. It'd be nice to see what he's doing. Miles Boykin hasn't really been doing any favors. I could see him being off the team. Tylan Wallace, he's making some catches. Andrews is making some catches. Coming back, he had his first practice today. He went 11 for 19, but he was actually more accurate because I think 4 of those passes were dropped. And Greg Roman's talking about passing efficiency, and I agree with this. Passing efficiency is better than passing yards. Then on the defensive side, Odafe Oweh is actually starting to flash some of his athleticism. And I think it was really smart by DeCosta to go in there and actually basically draft a pass rusher that could probably chase down Lamar Jackson if they needed to, if he really needed to. And and so instead of other teams, especially teams in the AFC, they wouldn't have a chance to get that guy. And one guy I think could make the team, and this is a this would be a nightmare for other teams if this guy were to properly apply what he's been given physically, and that's cornerback Chris Westry. He is a cornerback who is 6'4" and runs a 4.3 40.
It's pretty close. It's pretty fast.
Yeah, and apparently he had some injury issues with the Cowboys last couple of years, so he basically they cut him, and then the Ravens got him. The Ravens also traded conditional seventh for Josh Oliver, who could be like a Hayden Hurst light player. He also had injury concerns. So think about it. Chris Westry is competing to be like the sixth corner because you have Marlon Humphrey one, Marcus Peters is your two, Jimmy Smith, who by the way, it looked scary on Friday because apparently he had to be carted off the field, but it was actually an ankle sprain, not a leg injury. So it should be 2-3 weeks, or he should be good. Uh, Tavon Young, he's been practicing. And then you have Sean Wade to probably your cornerback number 5. So that sixth spot is between either Anthony Averett or Chris Westry. And both of those guys are really fast. For Anthony Averett's like 5'10", 5'11". So it'll be really interesting to see who wins that spot. And I think, but the point I'm trying to make here is he's near the bottom of your depth chart. But he's also that size and speed combination that you create on Madden. Imagine that as your sixth corner, because you have 4 or 5 guys in front of him that are good. Like that is really good depth right there.
Yeah, it is.
And oh yeah, and like I'd rather have him or Devontae Harris or whoever they're throwing out there last year. So that's something there. But yeah, let's get into the other main thing, which is Justin Houston.
I saw his quote today. He said he was very close to signing with the Steelers, and then he said Baltimore was their number one choice. So that's why I guess they went to Melvin Ingram, because they were waiting for Houston to come around. And then when he didn't, they went. Or actually, wait, I think Ingram signed first, and then Houston signed. So
Yeah,
I think they were. Yeah, I think they were
Houston waited a while. He could have signed with them.
They were. I think they were tired of waiting. They were tired of waiting, I think, for him, and then they just signed Ingram. I think that's what the logic was.
Yeah, so a lot of Ravens fans, like in April, no, not Ingram, Houston, in like March, and then he had that visit in April before the draft, and then a lot of fans were saying, well, why don't you? And this was the whole comp pick formula, like they were against this whole comp pick formula because a team could take him. Well, if you signed him then, you would lose the draft pick and probably have to pay him $7-8 million a year. I mean, I'll get to the price tag that Houston signed for, but it's better. Like patience is a virtue, but he definitely brings about some solid experience because the guy is a veteran leader at this point. Like he's not going to be. He's not. We're not going to see that season where he had like 22. Was it 20 or 22 sacks? He's not going to be that guy. But could he be a guy that gets you 7 sacks? Sure. And it's also interesting to see that. Yes, that.
I think a bit more less than that at this point, just because he's a lot older now, probably.
But also Don Martindale blitzes a ton. So
that's a good point.
You also have to imagine, like you can see a situation Adafioe is like comes crashing through the middle, or Patrick Queen comes crashing through the middle, and then the quarterback kind of moves to one side, and then boom, Justin Houston's right there. So he could run himself into a few sacks, but I think it's a good guarantee that he's going to reach 100 sacks this year in his career because he has like 97. Yeah, he's like 97.5 right now.
He'll get that. He'll get that for sure. Yeah.
Calais Campbell also, I believe Calais Campbell has 93, 94, something like that, because now you have more depth in that D line. I mean, that D line now is it's definitely a lot more fearsome because Matt BK apparently is our third round pick. He's been noted as like a second year breakout star. You still have Derek Wolfe, you still got Brandon Williams, you still got Calais Campbell. Adafioe could be like a Daniil Hunter type player in a few years. Dalen Hayes could be a solid player. Tyus Bowser has athletic gifts. Justin Houston is a good veteran leader, and I think that's winner of this trade, of this signing. Because think about it. Now, Odafe Oweh gets to learn from Calais Campbell, and he gets to learn from Justin Houston. And he also happens to be 6'5", 250, and run a 4.44 40. So imagine what he can do with his physical gifts and the knowledge that he could get from Campbell and Houston. That could be a special player. Like
Yes.
that could be a very special player. And but yeah, let's go to the contract that he signed. Basically, he signed, and this is what's incredible. So the contract is about 1 million of signing bonus and then 2 million in incentives. So he's making up to $4 million.
Mm-hmm.
And I believe that he may have like the Steelers may have offered what 4.5, 5 million for Houston.
It might have been that, yeah.
But yeah, like so it's definitely a good value signing. So there's no like there's no down there's no issue here. Even if he is an aging pass rusher, but someone with his reputation, you're literally paying him $2 million. Like that's
it's a very low risk, high reward signing, basically.
Yeah, and then think about like this. Trey Hendrickson from the Saints, what was it, 4 years, 60 or something like that? He had one good year. The Browns signed Jadeveon Clowney for $8 million. He can't stay on the field. He's a good run stopper, but he's not a good pass rusher.
Yeah.
And then the Ravens got essentially Justin Houston for $2 million, up to $4 million, and the Steelers got Ingram. I mean, those two teams made the smartest moves out of all the pass rush because what
Ingram was just as cheap as Houston, I think.
Yeah, well, it's just more so that Ingram's getting more of that guarantee. Wait, to 4 million? No, up to 6 million, or was it like 3-4 million and then 2 million incentives, or 6 million guaranteed, or something like that?
Yeah. I mean, and you're to your point. I mean, you are right that both these organizations make the best decisions just because. I mean, they have great scouting staffs. The GMs know what they're doing, and it's these low risk. Yeah, it's these low risk moves that they both are so good at. It's been like that forever.
It is a so Ingram's contract is so it's about 2.9 mil guaranteed, about 2.9, basically half guaranteed, half is half it's a similar value, but yeah, but then also what was the other? There's that, and then so definitely it's a smart move by both teams. I mean, and then yeah, and then we'll see and yeah, the good part is this: the Ravens now have room to add a guy like Olivier Vernon. They have room to add a guy like Everson Griffin. Like they have room to add another aging vet pass rusher, because if their pass rush does struggle a little bit, they don't have to trade picks for a Chandler Jones.
Yeah.
They can go in and get a vet pass rusher. Now you have, let's say they go and get Vernon. Now you have Olivier Vernon, Justin Houston, Odafe Oweh, Dalen Hayes, Calais Campbell, Matt Gaffrey, quarterback. That's not fun for the other team.
Yeah, no, that's going to be a nasty like front seven.
And then I'll just say super talks like, and then you pair that with a secondary with Humphreys and Peters, and then Patrick Queen and Malik Harris. I mean that defense is going to look really good, especially, and if you have that ball control offense where the passing game and the running game it is a true wild card dual threat offense. That defense could get a lot better just by that alone. So it's gonna be interesting, but it seems very clear that what the Ravens are doing is, and I don't know if the Steelers are doing this as well, spend a lot of money on the secondary and find the value up front with the pass rushers. Now,
I mean, we still have to pay Fitzpatrick in a couple of years, so that's when they'll be starting to spend the money.
Yeah, but we'll see what happens with T.J. Watt. But yeah, so we'll kind of
he'll be extended before the season. I'll say that.
Yeah, and then we'll do one last segment on the Virginia Tech football update. My first thought is this: Amari Barno, I would be shocked if he doesn't get picked in the first 3 rounds of next year's draft. I would be completely shocked. I mean, did you see the times of the speed that they had of all the players?
I did not know.
No, so basically, obviously, Braxton Miller was one. He ran apparently 22.5 miles an hour. Obviously, Jaden Payo, Devin Hunter, they're
Yeah.
up there. But Amari Barno was fifth. Apparently, he can run at 22 miles an hour. And we're talking about a guy who's over, like, I think he's like, what, 6'6", 230, or somewhere around
Hmm.
that range? And he can run at 22 miles an hour. Like, and he was pretty good last year.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I could definitely see him being like that next the next Tremaine Edmonds type player,
Yeah.
where, like, consideration. And I think he's a very prime candidate for that. For those teams that pick between like 26 to 32, I wouldn't be shocked if they go after a guy like that. But at the same time, if he has a good combine, what do you think there's a chance he could get picked like 17 to 21 range?
I don't think so. No, I don't think he'll be able to get up there. I'll say whoever. I think the player who could have a good combine that could be picked up there if he has a good season, Jermaine Waller. I think he's that good. Remember when before he got hurt, he was almost as good as Caleb Farley. I mean, he's that good.
Yeah, and then you have yeah, I mean, and I think there and a few other notes there. I mean, I'm excited to see him. Uh, you had what, DJ Harvey? No, was it
No,
DJ Harvey?
might have been.
You don't know the corner from we got from California. He
Yeah,
might
that's
get
him.
some time. Dewan Lofton might. It was also listed as a potential freshman starter. I mean, we should see more talent there. I was surprised to see Kelly Lawson being used as a receiver. Wasn't he
Me
recruited as
too.
a defensive player?
Pretty sure. Yep. I think it was a corner or a linebacker. I think I thought it was what it was.
Yeah, so that's going to be one big receiver.
Yeah.
That's one big receiver, and so it'd be really interesting. But we'll end with this. Like, I know that they're high on, really not that high on him. Or do you share something similar about that?
High on who? You cut out there for a second. Say him
Burmeister,
again.
Burmeister.
Yeah, they seem to be. I mean, Fuente keeps talking about how the passing game is going to go to new heights this year. I mean, I'll believe it when I see it, though. So
Yeah, I think James Mitchell is going to be
he's
pretty.
he's really good. I really like him. I hope they use Trey Turner and Tavion Robinson quite a bit. I really like them. It'll be interesting.
Up as well.
Yeah. What did you say? You cut out. I don't know why
Yeah,
my Wi-Fi is so
yeah.
bad. Say it
Hey,
again.
Jaden Payo. I think Jaden. I'm really
Yeah,
excited to see Payo because I
me
mean,
too.
granted, he might be on a snap count because I think he's. I'll put it this way: he's a home run hitter. I think this is in baseball how you have the guys that come up like pinch hitters, but you bring them up to try to get a home run or an extra base hit to get you the game. I think that's what Jaden Payo is. The tools, but
Yeah,
he
I,
needs
I would agree.
but he needs to be on a limit. But I'm
Yeah,
excited to see what he is. We'll see what else they do. I mean, it's surprising to see that they moved Jack Hollyfield and Wilford Penney to either other positions. So it's going to be interesting. So I think now it's clear why they were recruiting several tight ends because they knew they can move these guys over. But so that's where we'll end the show. Thank you all for listening, and we will be back next Friday around 2, 3
yeah,
o'clock.
yeah. Next Friday for sure. This time we'll
All
talk
right.
to you all then.
All right.